Let's talk about the autopsy to which you paid attention. Democrats did an autopsy of 2024. It's described as avoiding the likeliest cause of death. The report alleges that the DNC is performing an audit of what went wrong in last year's election, but it will not touch on Biden's refusal to drop out of the race until the last minute, nor will it comment on Kamala Harris's campaign strategy. Instead, it mostly argues that donor money could have been spent more effectively. In particular, the people briefed on it said the after action review is expected, which is another word for autopsy. God, the way the people spin words in this world is amazing. Is expected to place blame with Future Forward, the party's main super PAC, which spent $560 million to support Biden and then Harris. They said the report would argue that Future Forward spent far too much propping up Harris and not nearly enough attacking Trump. It is expected also to argue that Future Forward's advertising approach was too focused on television programs to be affected, and it will review the lack of coordination between the super PAC's advertising and the Harris campaigns, which were often not in sync. Cenk, according to you and what you've seen thus far, even though the autopsy is not quite in our hands, did they address the problem?
I mean, they're literally saying we're not going to address the problem. Then why bother doing it? I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? When you put out a report and you say, okay, we're going to look into what went wrong, but not Biden or Harris, the two candidates at the different times.
Well, okay, so here's my argument against that then. Okay, so what I'm hearing and reading in this is that maybe that was a problem, but it's not a problem we can solve because Biden is off the stage. Harris presumably won't be the nominee next time at this point. We can say that. So let's talk about the things that we can affect right now, that the candidate has to spend the money in a coordinated way, et cetera, whatever the things that were mentioned in that. What have they accomplished by reiterating that Biden staying in the race too long was what did it? Then it's a one sentence.
I have an answer for that.
Okay, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. So
you know why I'm asking it?
Yeah. Right? Oh, sure, of course. Yeah. So like, if it turns out that you're investigating something that's irrelevant, right? Like, hey, it was OJ the real killer. Well, OJ's dead now, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's to your point, right? Let's note though, this is one like where we're going to investigate who did the killings, but we're not going to look into OJ. We're going to investigate the Menendez killings, but not look into the Menendez brothers. I mean, it seems comical on his face, but okay, is it relevant? Michael, I think one of the core problems is what the second problem. The first problem we already mentioned, money in politics, right? Of
course.
But that is so relevant to the Kamala portion of that conversation, the Kamala Harris, because what they did was they took an enormous amount of donor money, way more than Trump did. So that was supposed to lead to the win, but it led to a loss. So if you're not looking at that portion of it, you're making a huge mistake.
But I think they are looking at it.
They're looking at the PACs, but they're
looking at the PACs and how the campaign spent the money, how Harris spent it, what the advertising strategy was.
But that's looking at the small picture, but not the big picture. So they should look at both. So they should say, all right, look, did we misspend the money? Should we have spent ads online or on TV? Perfectly good question, right? But should we have taken the money in the first place is a question they are not looking at. And did Kamala Harris then change her policies based on the amount of money she was taking from corporate interests? That's a huge question and a big question.
It is a question. I mean, from the purely covering a campaign, she didn't have time to come up with policy. I don't know what policy she had that she could have changed.
No, she did. She did. I can tell you.
She had philosophies, but I mean, she was the vice president, which is, as we know.
No, Michael, I mean it specifically. Like her, we got excited when she first launched on the show, and you see the old tapes where we were like, okay, first of all, Biden's out of the race. Yes, right? Second of all, she picks Tim Walz. Oh, great, a progressive. But third of all, and we emphasize this a lot, the price gouging proposal that she had and the limiting the housing prices. Look, you needed to fill in a lot of blanks there, but it was a good start. Those were two top issues.
Great start, but I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with you. But the half-life of that campaign was so truncated.
But even within that half-life, she changed those positions as a matter of optics, and then her polling at that point dipped. So you might say, well, maybe you can connect that, maybe you can. But did she change those positions that were popular? Yes. Why did she change those positions? Well, we can't know because we're not doing an autopsy of her campaigns. Because she did send Mark Cuban out there to go, oh, no, don't worry about that. No, we're not really gonna look into the price gouging, and then waving the letter around that 90 corporate CEOs are supporting her. Those are very damaging to the campaign, I believe. But if you're not gonna look into it, then you're gonna miss a huge part of the story. But then the Biden portion of it is, the second part is also super important, which is, do Democratic voters trust their leadership too much? And I would scream from the mountaintops, yes, they scream, they listen to leadership too much, but leadership is the one doing the autopsy. So they're not gonna ask the question, hey, are we lying to our own voters? Are we asking them to pick the most establishment guy, the most corporate guy, the guy who takes the most donor money? And that's what's causing the problem in the first place. If you did a true autopsy, you might find out, for example, in 2016 or 2020, certainly let's talk about 2016, that's the more logical one. Hey, Bernie was up by 12 points on election day. Maybe he wouldn't have held the 12 points, maybe he wouldn't have held any of it and he might have lost, but at least there's some evidence that he might have won, and that was the guy not taking the corporate money. They said, leadership, both Hillary Clinton and the DNC said, no, take the money, because the money will help you defeat Trump. But they were wrong, the money did not help you defeat Trump. If you did a real autopsy, you might find out you shouldn't have trusted the DNC. You shouldn't have trusted Hillary Clinton. You should not have trusted the establishment Democrats. But they don't want you to find that out, because they are the establishment and they are the DNC. That's why leaving that out makes it comical.
I see that read. I don't think it's comical. I think autopsies are generally comical, and releasing the autopsy is comical. In politics, so much depends on the candidate, and all the other things, as important as they may seem after a loss, have a tiny bit to do with it compared to how important the candidate is. And I believe that as someone who follows politics. Nothing you're gonna tell me is gonna disabuse me of that, but it doesn't matter. Like I may be wrong, but that's what I believe. And so I think that if you look back at 2024, the whole fiasco with the president staying too long and Harris being a candidate that didn't appeal to enough people, got Democrats excited, but it stopped right there. I think that's what went wrong in this election. They need a better candidate next time. I just think it's that's it.
Yeah,
save your autopsy money.
I totally disagree.
I know you do.
Right, but that's why it's an interesting conversation. Yeah. Lastly, guys, look, what's my autopsy and trying to be productive, right? It's to say, hey, I think that we got hurt mainly by the establishment Democrats and all the phenomena I just explained. I think we got a little bit hurt too by some of the radical positions that were used against us, right? But the positions that are popular and why Bernie did so well in an unexpected way, had this huge boom in 2016 that he maintained in 2020. Not enough to win the primary, I'm not getting back into that, but my point is he went from 1% to 48, 49%. Why did that phenomenon happen? It happened because his core economic policies are very popular. And if you focus on that, you will have winning campaigns. But if you're not looking at what went wrong with policy, you're not looking at Biden and Kamala, you're not looking at their policies, you're gonna miss the big story. That's the third giant thing that they would miss here. So my way of being productive is, a rebellion pack. And so why? Because then let's find the populist left, the Ro Khannas, the Randy Bryces, the Richard Ojettas, the JD Scholtens, and promote them. And so I'm not waiting for the Democratic Party. If you wait for the DNC, you'll be waiting for Godot, okay? Never gonna happen. So instead of trying to convince them, which I've tried for 20 years and hasn't worked, right? Is show them. If JD Scholten wins the Senate race in Iowa and helps flip the Senate, well, that is enormous evidence that left-wing economic populism works. If Ojeda,
it will happen on the same day that they need Roy Cooper to win in North Carolina, who is anything but a left-wing populist. Though.
Right,
so that's what they'll say to you.
But here, let's take that example, right? I don't know that this is going to happen. If there's a wave, they might both win, right?
Yeah.
But it'd have to be a pretty big wave.
There's a way they could both win.
No, I don't mean that. I mean in North Carolina, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
So Roy Cooper's in North Carolina. Okay, he's running for that Senate seat.
Yeah.
I want the Democrats to pick up the seats, but Roy Cooper is not my favorite Democratic candidate. He might be in the North Carolina context. I get it, right? But at the same time, I would want someone who's more populous. Okay, but good news, the same North Carolina, that's where Ojeda is, okay? And Ojeda's in a red district, and he has to overcome about 5 to 10 points. See, I think it's +8 at this point for the Republicans, right? Now, for example, I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but if Cooper loses and Ojeda wins, oof, that is overwhelming evidence.
It is overwhelming. It is evidence, certainly, especially in purple states. It's real evidence in purple states. But it also, if you look at what if Cooper, by being a popular Democrat in a state where the Democrats haven't really been able to push through quite yet, what if because he brings out so many Democrats who like him, Ojeda wins because a lot of Democrats are coming out to vote and they're gonna vote for the D, and that's gonna be Ojeda in that district. So
So that is entirely possible. But what we'll do on the Young Turks is we'll be honest. We'll say, hey, look, you see how the boat rose, both boats rose because of the rising tide, right? But if it's the, and by the way, it could be the other way around. It could be that Cooper does better than Ojeda does, right? So then we'll be honest about that. But if it turns out, oh my God, Randy Bryce flipped a red district in Wisconsin, and Ojeda flipped a red district in North Carolina, and J.D. Scholten flipped Iowa in the Senate, that's pretty compelling evidence, let alone whichever other candidates might come. So then you show not to the establishment, they're never gonna get off the crack of money, right? So Hakeem Jeffries will be chasing that money to the end of his career, right? So, but you show to the Democratic voters, there's a better way, guys. And it's not just a better way in terms of policy, it's a better way in terms of winning. Now, in order for that to happen though, they gotta win. So that's what we're in the business of doing. So join the rebellion, rebellionpact.com. We'll have a link down below. But also, if you want to take money out of politics, fightcorruption.us. That's Wolfpack. For God's sake, join them. Republican, Democrat, they don't care at all. They just wanted to get the money out.
Because that is the autopsy. That is going to show up on every single goddamn autopsy is what you're going to see, and what has to change, and what Rebellion PAC is doing. So.
Yeah, and so we'll do fightcorruption.us as a link down below too. So guys, let's all get in the game, right? Don't do what the Democratic leaders are doing, which is semantics, optics, etc., and they're going down, not up, right? So get in the game and be active and productive and try to get victories, take power away from Trump. And if you say, hey, I don't like that wing of the party, I want to do another wing of the party, God bless. Get in that game and try to win. I mean, look at what Mamdani just did. I don't agree with all of his policies, but he got in the game and he won. At least he won the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
And so now he's going to get to show if his side of the Democratic Party is the real way to go. Now that's deep blue New York, but it's okay. At least he did something and it was productive.
Why are you being so anti-Semitic?
Anti-Semitic.
Thank you very much. All right.
We're here all week, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.